Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Discriminating Gamer. Here's a tip. No matter how good the hand soap smells, never walk out of a men's restroom sniffing your fingers. Ladies and gentlemen, today we're going to go ahead and take a look at Pacific War 1942 Solitaire from Worthington Publishing. In Pacific War 1942 Solitaire from Worthington Publishing, the player takes on the role of the United States and its allies as it attempts to defeat Japan in World War II. Now, this is a very small game. Essentially, you have a very tiny game board with some other tiles that tell you what you and the Japanese can do during the game. But essentially, you have a number of tracks leading from various theaters, such as China and the South Pacific, the Central Pacific, toward Japan. Now, this is essentially a reverse states of siege game. Instead of armies coming toward you, you are commanding armies going toward a central location, in this case, Japan. On the game board, you'll have various sea zones. They're either Allied controlled or Japanese controlled. And along those various fronts, you will have either the Japanese front line or the American front line. They are always right next to each other. On your turn, what you do is you roll a die, and the die will then tell you how many action points you get for that turn. Depending on the die roll and depending on at what point you are in the game, you may get more or less actions to do. Now, you can roll a die and attempt to push the Japanese land forces back along those tracks. You're trying to get a specific die roll number there, and there's certain modifiers. For instance, if you are in a place, a sea zone that the Japanese control, they're going to give you a -1 DRM. You can attack the Japanese Navy. Essentially, you can attempt to take it out. If you get the right die roll, you can actually flip it from a Japanese control to American control, thus making you more powerful when you advance toward Japan along those tracks. You can add a reserve marker to the front. Essentially, you add a little reserve marker, and what that means is going forward, when you try to attack, you can remove that marker in order to take a reroll action. Now, various times you may have Europe tokens on the board. These Europe tokens indicate kind of European first strategy, particularly on the part of the British. Well, that's going to inhibit their ability to easily move up on their tracks toward Japan. So what you can do is actually, for an action, remove one of those European tokens. When those tokens are cleared, then it becomes much easier to move along those tracks, attacking along those tracks toward Japan. Now, also, some effects will force your units to become stalled. They will flip over. That means they cannot easily advance. For one action, you can flip a unit from stalled to ready. Now, after you take your turn, then the Japanese get to take a turn. Essentially, you roll a die and you consult their event chart. Now, depending on kind of where you are in the game or other factors, you're going to go ahead and trigger certain events. Now, one of the events the Japanese can get is reserves. Essentially, you flip the Japanese token to its reserve side, meaning that if you attack it, you get a -1 DRM. You may be forced to put the Europe tokens into the Europe first box. The Japanese may attack your land forces, or they may attack you at sea trying to gain control of a sea zone. And there's a lot of other events that can happen as a result of those Japanese die rolls. Now, the game ends in 3 ways. There's a turn tracker. If you reach the end of the turn track, the game immediately ends. If ever the Japanese control 2 of the 4 zones of Hawaii, Australia, India, or China, they immediately win. And the game will also end if, through the Japanese event track, the atomic bomb is detonated on Japan. Now, when the game ends, you're going to go ahead and look at where all of your units are, and it's going to determine exactly what kind of a victory or defeat you've earned in Pacific War 1942 Solitaire. We'll get back to the review in just a moment. I want to take a minute to ask you to check out my other channel, that is Cody Carlson PhD, where we talk about history, books on history, military history. I even post some of my lectures for my classes on there. Please check that out. Please subscribe to that channel. And now, back to the review. So this is a very small game. It's a small game physically. This is one you can put in your pocket and take with you. This is not a big game at all. And yet, it's a pretty fun little game for what it is. Of course, it's not very long, 20, 30 minutes tops. And, you know, it's a total chance, right? It's die rolls. You do have some choices here, don't get me wrong, but it's really chance heavy. Like I say, it's kind of a reverse States of Siege game, although maybe it's not nearly as complex. I don't think States of Siege games, most of them are not terribly complex anyway. But this is a game that instead of you trying to defend a central point, you're attacking a central point from different locations, and it's pretty fun for what it is. It reminds me of kind of the book War Games that Solitaire puts out, but of course this is just kind of a self-contained board game. Little map, little tiles, little tokens, but it packs a punch. It's fun. It's great stories. One of the reasons why I love to play games and I love to play solitaire games is they tell great stories. This one does, oh, I got that. Oh, the Japanese pushed me back in this sea, but I'm going to move forward, but I got a negative DRM. I gotta get support away from Europe. So there's different fun things that are really occurring in this game, and I enjoyed it quite a bit. Nothing mega innovative or new or original here, it seems to me. Just fun, straightforward, good looking, good table presence game for as tiny as it is. So I'm going to recommend this. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10 on the Cody scale. I think it's a very fun little game. Thank you once again for joining us today on The Discriminating Gamer. As always, I ask you to please leave a comment for us on YouTube, on Board Game Geek, on our Facebook page, or on thediscriminatinggamer.com. We ask you to please like us on Facebook, subscribe to us on YouTube, and follow us on Twitter. I'd ask you to please give a thumb to this video on YouTube and on Board Game Geek. And if you're so inclined, I'd ask you to check out my other channel, that is Cody Carlson PhD, where we talk about military history, books on history, fun things like that. It would mean a lot to me if you would subscribe to that channel as well. And if you really do appreciate the content we bring you on this channel, I would humbly ask you to click on the Super Thanks button and leave a tip. My luggage got torn to pieces, so I thought about suing the airline. But my lawyer said I didn't have much of a case. Please somebody help me on my feet again, and I don't know where I'm going, and I don't know where I've been. Please somebody help me on the solid ground. It's a long time, and I've been dying. Once a year I wind up in the band.
What, are you freaking kidding me? This is the best game ever! I love this! Don't listen to these guys! They are nutballs! I'm not kidding you! These guys, I think, some kind of screw